refused to sign the contract. And when he returned home, he still had the courage to police chief at the same place. But he was forced to report to the new Director of Public Safety, who had moved into the chief's office. And now you are his number two.
Correct, and he's going to give me guidance on how to run the police department that I had run for 12 years.
Do you think the lack of support for this war has anything to do with it?
It was very supportive of the war as long as it doesn't affect their city and how it runs. It's very easy to say I support the troops, but it's very hard to be without one of those troops for a long period of time. And there's a lot of guys over there sacrificing an awful lot. And they really need to feel like they're being supported and they have their job when they come back.
Middleton has filed a lawsuit claiming his rights under the USERRA law to the same job with the same status were violated. He's seeking $1 million in damages. What do you think that the employers are really most worried about?
I was having to go again because that was one of the things I was asked. What are your chances of me leaving again? And they said, I'm still in the military.
Chances are pretty good.
Well, I mean, we're at war. They said, they're good. That I will have to leave again.
And that's what happened. Nurse Joanne Merritt is now on her second tour, and so is Jeff Vineyard, the Conway driver. He's back in Iraq after less than 3 years at home in between. Employers, both public and private, seemed to accept the arrangement at first. They wanted to support the troops. But now with the repeated deployments, the realization that this isn't going to stop, some companies are trying to avoid reservists altogether. Ted Daywalt, president of VetJobs.com, that helps military people find jobs, says he knows companies that simply refuse to hire them.
I had one senior VP of HR tell me that if I had 3 candidates for a senior position in the company, and one of them mentioned their environmental service, he would only have 2 candidates left. And I said, you know, that's illegal. His response was, I can always find a reason why not to hire somebody.
And how much is that happening now?
I think it's happening a lot.
Can't change it.
You can prove it to a point. There are surveys done that shows that upwards of 70% of the employers won't hire a person who's active in a guard and reserve.
Dave Miller with Conway says he wants to continue hiring them. He likes their discipline and willingness to work long hours. But he and other executives are agitating for compensation.
The military is going to take our people 30% of the time. Let them pay 30% of the health care costs.
Now, does the government give you any help in tax breaks or anything like that?
Leslie, the answer to that is absolutely no.
Nothing.
Nothing. We have gone and petitioned Congress to, in fact, provide tax incentives for companies to do the right thing for these citizen soldiers.
And what's the response?
They're still discussing it.
A tax break to help very small businesses became law in June. Miller says the cost to all companies will go up, since the Pentagon has announced a new policy of calling up the National Guard and Reserves on a regular basis, every 5 years, even after the current wars are over. In using the Guard and Reservists this way, in other words, for regular deployments, the charge is that you're just doing it to save money. You're doing it on the back of these employers.
I think it's the most appropriate use of America's forces. We have 2.6 million people in the army, 1.4 million in the active duty, 1.2 million in the reserve, 45% of the military. And what we do is we save money actually on that because the Guard and Reservists doesn't cost as much. So I think it's an appropriate use of the total force. The Department of Defense is going to rely more heavily on reserve and guards. They should take into consideration all they're doing is shifting costs at that point in time. And there are those of us that probably won't accept that shifting graciously, at least silently. We won't accept it silently.
He and his fellow businessmen will have a hard time getting government help in this era of big deficit. The Pentagon is making other concessions, though. They're reducing the length of each deployment to just 1 year, and call-up notices are going out anywhere from 6 to 20 months in advance. Secretary Hall, who recently visited reservists on duty in Kuwait, says he hears what the companies are saying, but his priority is the troops be enforced, which is why he made this astonishing offer.
Let me make this commitment right on the air if I could just for a moment. If there's any guardsman or reservist or family member out there that has a problem, call my office. Call me personally. I will personally ensure.
What's your number?
My number is 703-697-6631. And I will ensure that I put a casework on it. If necessary, I will call the head of the company or the agency personally. I don't just make that offer just precipitously. I mean that because we are concerned about it. My office will react, and I invite people, if they have a problem, to tell me.
CBS News Money Watch Update, sponsored by Prescription Flomax.
Good evening. Machinists are returning to work in Boeing after a 2-month strike. Gas fell to $2.44 a gallon. It's down $1.14 in just a month. Ireland's Ryanair reportedly plans transatlantic fares as low as $13. And High School Musical 3 wins again at the weekend box office. I'm Russ Mitchell, CBS News.